Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of At Home With. And we are thrilled to be at home with Barb Reilly today. And Barb Reilly is the CMO of a company called Popcorners. So welcome to your own home, Barb. Nice to
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I know. Yeah. So you and I go way back. We've known each other for, I'm going to say, 20 years. You've made some really interesting changes of late that I want to cover in this conversation. But before we do that, talk to me about your quarantine situation. Who are you home with, and what's the situation? Where are you? You look like you're near the beach because I see a sailboat.
Yes, I am. I'm not far from the ocean. I came back from a trip. We had just been acquired by PepsiCo on March 8th. We landed back from Plano, Texas, down where Pepsi is. And our trip to Expo West had been canceled. We got back and we were told, don't go into the office. And the second I heard that, I was like, well, I know where my happy place is. And if I'm going to be stuck someplace, I'm going to go down the Cape. So we came down we've had a cottage down the Cape for a really long time since I was a little kid, and I've been hunkered down here since March 11th. And this is my porch where we have, it's a 4-season porch, and it's not my boat, but there it is.
I can't think of a better place to be, honestly. Who's with you? Are the girls with you, or is it?
I have Jackie, my mom, and Mark's been working on occasion, but has been with us the last half of this 70 days, but the first half he was working and couldn't come near us. So he's
amazing you say 70 days. And at some level, I feel like it feels like 7,000 days. Other times, I feel like it has flown by.
Yeah, I agree.
What are you doing to sort of entertain yourselves? What have you rediscovered, or old passions, or to entertain yourself during this time?
Well, the one thing I will say that's been great, I've been working. So I think for anybody who doesn't have little ones around, which I don't, I do have an elderly person who is probably as rough as a 5-year-old. I love my mother, but she's, she's 89 and ask me, what day it is about 700 times a day. So
I do that too. I'm doing that. What day is it?
She's adorable, though. I've got a chronicle on Betty stories. And working, and that's really helped. I think for anybody working and being able to throw themselves into that, it's pretty great. And then I take a lot of walks around here, and thank God for fresh air because I think it's keeping me sane. There's nothing during the day walking to the beach. So I'm really lucky. Work,
yeah,
family.
I follow you on Instagram, and some of the pictures you take are pseudo professional photographer level. So you're clearly taking a lot of pictures.
Yes, thank you though, Kath. That's sweet of you.
Good for you. So I wanted to talk to you because I think you have such an interesting story. You have a really unique situation. And that was, you were on the agency side for as long as I've known you. I know you had some little client side experience, but for the best part of 25 years, you were internal. You were doing what you do so well, and that is nurturing clients. And then suddenly you decided that you wanted to hop the fence and try the client side. And you've, first of all, ended up in a really unique situation. You can talk about that, but also maybe just start with what made you want to sort of go over to the other side of the business.
Well, I was for a little nanosecond on the client side on 2 different clients. Ocean Spray,
right.
For about 13, 14 months, I was in the marketing department at Ocean Spray, and then I was on the client side at a skincare company called Elizabeth Grady Face First. And I loved those client side opportunities, but they really made me a better account person. So when I went back to the agency world, I kind of leaned into those client experiences, understanding a little bit more, but I was young. I was a junior account person. Can't say it was, an opportunity to be a senior client at that time. I was just learning. And I knew at some point, I just had this feeling I'd end up back at the client side. I just loved creativity too much. And I wanted to learn from the best, and I really wanted to immerse myself in brand and creative strategy. So I spent a lot more time at the agency side than I thought, but I think I always had this yearning for, how do I impact a business? How do we really impact the growth of a business, help a customer? I just sort of felt that's where my calling was. And I figured at some point in time, if I didn't do this, I was never going to do it. So I took a really, oh my God, it was like jumping off a cliff. I walked in one day at Arnold, and I loved my time at Arnold. I worked with you at Arnold. I mean, we had great memories. It was a great agency, but I just needed to do it if I didn't do it then. And I made the decision on the fly and resigned. And it was kind of I don't even know what happened to me. It just happened. I just did it.
Right.
And I figured it would work itself out. I have an attitude about life that it happens the way it's meant to. And a couple of clients called me when they heard that I was going to leave and asked if I'd consider working with them. And one really great opportunity came, and it was an interim CMO role, which I wanted. And interim felt great to me because it would give me the opportunity to try the job out and not be committed a long time. And let's face it, CMO jobs don't last all that long anyway.
Yeah, what's the average CMO job now?
43 months.
42 months.
Got up a little. So God bless this client. It was Kaplan University, and they were being acquired by Purdue, and it was acquisition mode. And one of the things I felt was happening at the agency side that was bothering me so much is that the model was busted and everybody knew it, but nobody knew how to figure it out. Part of the reason it was busted is companies were, M&A land was taking over. And it changes the way agencies are needing to be compensated. And because no one could figure it out, we were operating on such lean profits, no one was making decisions about what was, in my opinion, majority of the decisions being made were being made financially to how do we maximize profits. It was never about how do we make impact on the work. At least I didn't feel that. And I was thinking that this was what was wrong. And if I could go on the client side, maybe I could understand it better. What are all these acquisitions about? What's going on with the M&A world? And then the next contract I had as a CMO was a startup in maybe 8, 9, 10 years in the business of making chocolate. And they needed seed money, and they got seed money, and the investor placed me in, and that was a great experience. And then the next contract CMO gig was Better For You Brands. And I had a few brand strategy projects in between, and a consultancy project in between.
So talk about Better For You Brands, because everyone won't know what that means. So how does
okay. Better For You Brands is the holding company for Popcorners. Popcorners is a healthy snack in the Better For You space. So, it's got all the things that you want: simple ingredients, clean ingredients. It's just a better way to eat a snack.
I'm a fan, Barb. I've been watching this entire time. Yes.
All right. So most people, maybe you can tell me if you did. Did you get introduced to it on a JetBlue flight with the little snack box that goes down the aisle?
No, I did not. I got introduced to it through the Women's Leadership Forum because you were gracious enough to send us these samples for everybody.
Didn't realize that was your first go at it. Yeah, it's great product, great company, great mission. And I knew when they called me for the assignment, I knew that it was a short-term assignment, as I've known they all are. And PepsiCo bought us pretty soon after I got there, 3 months in. And I've been staying through the integration, and I'm going to be on to my next assignment soon. So that's what
interesting though, because it's almost like a new business pitch where you have to, if you're going to be an interim CMO, it kind of demands that you get up to speed really quickly. So you're good at that. Having worked with you on new business law, you're very good at that.
Well, thank you. It's a smart start. Remember, we used to call them smart starts, and you have to be in a mode where you absorb everything quick, and all the politics and extraneous stuff, you just got to wipe it out. And it's very specific, goal-oriented. And I have to tell you, that discipline is the best thing I've gotten out of this. Always has to go away. You cannot pay attention to anything except for you're going to be acquired. You got to focus on how to do that.
Right. But isn't that refreshing, though, not to deal with the politics, to just say that's not not my problem, not why I'm here.
Well, it is, but I actually think the lesson is if I went into a permanent role, I'd be a lot more disciplined in saying, here are my 3 top objectives. Everything else really isn't where I'm going to focus.
Yeah.
And that's refreshing, is to have that sort of crystal clarity in what I'm here for. Because you get too many things on your plate, we all get crushed.
Right. And I think even this time, what we're going through now has forced us all to say, these are the 3 objectives. Let's focus on those.
Isn't it so true?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm finding it very refreshing. And
Same.
they say if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. And that's how the ad club has been focusing. And I'm sure you have to do that as well.
It's true, and it's been a really good lesson for me, and which is, you know, I think probably where we'll focus. I having had the agency background, having now seen, you know, a lot of M&A, been a part of it, understanding the client side a lot better and what our relationships are, and now I've done 9 RFPs of all.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Because I think that's such a fascinating perspective that you have.
I do too.
Yeah, all these years on the agency side, and now you've been through 9 RFPs on the client side, and you've seen many, many agencies present. And I would love to hear your candid advice now from that perspective on what are agencies doing right, what are they doing wrong, and what do you see the future of the typical RFP or just the agency relationship in the future? I know that's a lot, that gave you too much to answer, but maybe start with the witnessing of the pitches. What did you experience?
Well, I'll start by saying I took a lot of what I learned on what I hated about what clients did to agencies into what I was doing, because I think there's a ton of abuse going on. It's nervousness from clients. They're not confident, so they, you know, they don't have enough intuition or trust in their own gut to know what they're looking for. They don't go about the process right, so they change gears. They don't bring the right people in. They make this thing go on forever. They abuse the agencies and ask for hundreds of hours and hundreds of, you know, people and answers that they're not paying anything for. And, you know, I really did not want to be that kind of a client when I did an RFP. And I'm very lucky that every single one of the companies that I was contracting with, I would go in and I would say, if you've done an RFP before, we're not doing it the way you're used to. I want to shake it up. Fewer rounds, mostly chemistry. A lot of this was just, you know, referral from people I knew. If I was looking for freelancers, when one was a freelancer pitch only, I only let freelancers in, no agencies, because the budget was about that big, and I didn't want to, you know, I just felt like freelancers were great and they never had a forum. Think about it. All these freelancers, they don't have a forum for knowing when a piece of business is coming available. They get their jobs, you know, they only get them if they're lucky enough to have great contacts or, you know, prior work they've done. So I wanted to open up for the talent pool that was out there freelancing. Yeah. And I was like, we're going to pay them. We can't not pay them for the pitch. We're going to do 2 rounds. One's like the chemistry briefing round, and the other one is come to the table, and then I'll pay you for all that. We'll pick one, and then we'll pay you to work the rest of the way. But I just wanted to do it differently, and it was all geared on the abuse that I had seen being on the other side.
Right.
That was number one. And luckily, the CEOs I worked with, every one of them was like, that sounds great, no problem. We'll put a budget aside. Tell me what you need. And we did it. The other thing that I think that was different was I really, really knew what we needed. Having been on the agency side, I knew what was possible and I knew what we needed. And I was very specific in every assignment. This is what we need. Now, people may not have liked it. I remember when we did the Taza pitch, I got a lot of people saying, oh, that budget's not very big. There they go again, taking advantage of freelancers and blah, blah, blah. I got a lot of, you know, there's a lot of social chatter. And luckily, a lot of freelancers stood up and said, hey, pal, what's your problem? You already know going in what the budget is. You never know when you typically go in. they hide the budget from you usually.
Right.
You go in because of the brand name or because you're desperate for a win or whatever. And by the way, you don't have to go after it now that you know what it is. So what's your problem? And I had 5 freelance teams sign up. We paid 4, and then we paid the winner, and then we paid them to work with us. So for me, it was just tell everybody honestly what's coming, be crystal clear on the pitch, treat them as a partner. I mean, why this whole pitch process has gotten so slanted. I can't pay my architect or my home builder or my landscaper or my doc. I can't have them come in and tell me, could you do a free surgery before I hire you for the real surgery?
No spec.
Landscape my yard for me, and then let me decide if I want to hire you for landscaping. It doesn't work that way. Why do we do it to agencies? It never made sense, right? So that was the biggest part. But the aha for me after I tried to course correct and I saw is that agencies hadn't broken the model quite yet, most of them. They go at it the exact same way. And I was horrified. I mean, I was really horrified. I was like, have you not learned that we don't need out of a 2-hour meeting, an hour about you? You're already here. Help me understand your case histories and what you did for someone else, or you saw the objectives I gave you. Show me what you think about how you might attain those. I made it really easy. I wasn't asking for a ton of extra work.
Sure.
So focus on the questions I asked you, not about you, and people would run out of time. One of the biggest things that blew my mind, Kath, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but a very large, well-known agency was invited to a pitch I was doing. That very well-known managing partner didn't respond to my original personal email that said, hey, do you want to participate? Really liked them, and I thought, I'm going to send them the RFP anyway. They didn't reply to me, and that should have been my warning bell. They didn't even have the courtesy to reply to my personal email asking them if they wanted the RFP, but I sent it anyway. And again, no response. So I moved along. I had a lot of interest from other agencies. 7 days into the RFP, I got a phone call begging me, I'm sorry, I didn't get to you. Can I be in the RFP? And you can't even read your email. How good are you going to be at this? And you're
Right.
on the 8 ball. So those are the kinds of things, like there's just, I don't know, there's a lot of stupidity and a lot of assumption and a lot of not listening. I think my biggest takeaway, both sides aren't listening. It kind of felt like I was beginning to do a little marriage counseling between the client organization and the agency team. I started to become more of a sort of a Switzerland, hey, if you want to do this, this is what I recommend. Hey, if you want to have them pay attention to this, this is what I think. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, no one is listening to each other. It's just horrible. And the ones that
Barb, what do you think the agency of the future to look like? And not necessarily for a small brand with a tiny budget, because I think freelance makes perfect sense there, and that I do think is a huge future.
The agency, yeah, you mean for like a mid to large size agency?
Yeah.
Well, I've been working with one, and the simple things that they've been doing, they're fantastic. They start every meeting out in the pitch. You know, the old days when we pitched, it was all about creative, always, which it still is in my mind. The creative is the touch point to the consumer. So it's always about creative to me.
Yeah.
But it's the creative lives in service of driving a change, a result. This agency walked into the pitch and they started with a dashboard and what they were going to evaluate themselves and their work on. They started off with, let's think about what the results are going to be before we do anything else. Here are your
And
objectives.
was this for popcorners or was this for, okay.
Popcorners. And the whole entire thing started off, and every meeting since has started off with, no matter what the meeting, here are the results we're looking for, here's what we were holding ourselves accountable for, and this is where we're at in that journey. And in the pitch, it was one of the most refreshing things I've ever seen. They started with the end before we started with anything else. And their mentality is all results orientation, and media and content and influencers and everything lives for that. And
Barb, I have to ask the obvious question. Is it an agency that's in market?
no,
No, see, now that's good.
no, and I'm sorry about that.
You picked the agency that you felt good about. I can't, that's, your job.
But I
That's
did call 2 Boston agencies, 2 really big Boston agencies, called 2, and they said, you're a little too small for us.
yeah,
Well, that is the most short-sighted thing I've heard.
yeah.
Because guess what? We're getting acquired, and there's a growth plan here that's pretty massive. And it's a mistake, to be honest.
And it was different. I mean, it was a different time, and that switch has flipped, and it's a new day and a new way of thinking.
It's a new way of thinking, but the other thing is, I figured I do respect the fact that if they were too busy, I wouldn't want anyone to take on something. So it's kind of great. But the answer wasn't we're too busy. The answer, one of them was, but 2 of them were it's just a little too small.
Right.
And that to me was sort of part of what I think maybe some of not the agency of the future, because the agency that we hired started off by saying, you're smaller than we normally take, but we have a formula where we look at 1 to 2 brands a year. We build it into our model where we look at 1 to 2 brands a year that are fitting what we consider sort of this
That's interesting.
new trajectory of companies, and they're on the acquisition mode, and we want to be a part of the acquisition mode. And right before that, they finished another assignment, and that was their case history, and it talked all about how they take startups through the journey. And for us, that was a really interesting approach. And I think agencies have to maybe stop thinking about agency of record and think about more, when I get into this relationship, what is this relationship about? Because this relationship might be small now, but could be in our portfolio of acquisition brands. Or right. One could just be maybe a small fee, but just give our creative team a chance to really put awesome creative out in the market. Everyone has to be results oriented, but I think each one fits in a different part of your portfolio. And I loved this portfolio strategy that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always try and keep these to about 20 minutes. So I don't want to let you get away without giving a couple of tips. So without putting you under too much stress, if you were to talk to agencies now from the client side, what would you say would be a couple of solid tips in new business? How to do it, how to choose it.
If I were to go back to the agency side, I think that I would ask, no matter what, and I would say no. If I were in the agencies, as a client, I would say to the agency, make sure you're completely understanding the chemistry part. Like ask no matter what, whether there's a pitch consultant mandate, you have a big sit down conversation. Now, in today's world, maybe that's a Zoom meeting, but I think that the conversations that we had in the very beginning were so informal and so partner-like that they set the rest of it off. It's almost like you go in to meet your doctor first.
Yeah.
You got to have that informal conversation and demand it. Demand from the pitch consultant, demand from the person reaching out. If they're not willing to have that partner-like conversation, can I meet the people on the team? Can I please just understand what your biggest challenges are? Those sound really basic, but they have to come in a chemistry meeting. And every single one I started with just, I'd like to have a casual conversation. I'd like to just meet you as people. And that to me is what partners do. Otherwise, it's this authoritative and vendor partnership, and you are lower than even the landscaper, the way it's currently running. And what I'm going to tell you, what I tell every single CEO and marketing team I work with, is that if you want this to be a short-term relationship, then treat them like they've been treated for the last 10 years, which is like shit. But if you really want them to like fight for you and go to the mat for you and put the best people on the team for you, like you got to like really figure out how you're treating them, because they're going to get every great person on your account the better you treat them. So I mean, I think both sides are broken, Kath, but for agencies, I think they owe it to themselves to push for a better pitch process. I don't suggest that they, you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about agencies walking away, you know, for certain things. You can walk away. I think you got to give it your best shot first at asking for conversations. That's number one. Number two, the act of listening has gone away completely. No one's listening. They're formulating answers long before they actually have heard what's been asked. They got to listen and they got to act. That's not happening. I watched it too many times. I mean, I know that sounds basic, but it's pathetic. And I think because agencies have so much on their mind and they're really wanting to win, and they've got, you know, parent companies that are breathing down their back, and they've got time sheets to fill out. It's just too much pressure. They got to listen. And then the last is be a master of conflict management. I think some of the best advice that I can give is the clients that always came back to me, or the clients that called me and offered me jobs. It's not a coincidence. I had massive conflicts in each of the tenures of my relationship with them. Massive. All sorts of things. We screwed up. We ran over budget. They had a shitty marketing person managing us. It was conflict on both sides. The better you are at learning how to conflict manage and have a SWAT-like person who's skilled at that on your team, I mean, that's for the long term and the short term. Yeah. Conflict management is about the best skill, and I have learned most agency people are scared to death of it.
Interesting. Well, this is going to be one of those at home with that I think we'll get a lot of feedback when we post it, because I think you're not alone in your thoughts, and I think this pitch process has always been kind of a thorn in the side. And as we come out of quarantine and we get back to, there's no normal anymore. It'll be the new approach that I think agencies will be thinking about. How do we do this? What does the future look like? So it's exciting. It's very exciting time. Yeah.
I believe that we are, you know, we're getting a lot of pent up demand. It's getting safer to go back out. We've been going back out slowly in the right ways. And, you know, I'm moving on to another opportunity probably in a month or so. Can't talk about it quite yet. It's not definite, but it's still in this sort of startup, grow it mode. And I'm really loving this space. I had no idea this is where I would land, but I'm loving it. And the attitude on every one of them is, we need great talent. We need money to fuel us. And that's, I mean, think back to when we first started. That's the way it was, right? And
back to basics.
They believed that, you know, funding marketing was their investment for growth. And that's where I think we're all going to start getting back to.
Yeah. One of our trustee members emailed me today and said, what do you see? What are agencies doing? Are they going to get back to the office soon? And I said to him, this is mother-in-law research, because I just know from talking to the board, et cetera, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So
it's not.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
We might be sitting closer now, but we're still going to be.
I know. There's going to be a lot of empty space, so it'll be fascinating to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Cal, for coming. talking.
Yeah, this was great. And we're going to continue this. It's a great series, a lot of interesting people, and we're so grateful to go to meeting and our friends at Logman for doing this for us. And they've been very generous with the ad club. So when you see Kathy, you can tell her thanks for supporting the ad club.
I have to tell you, I've been posting about her. She's been great. I'm really impressed with them. And, you know, all of these formats have been so helpful to all of us. Thank God for them. Thank God.
And it's a learning curve. It was scary in the beginning to say, wow.
Can you imagine if this was 10 years ago? Oh my God, we'd be screwed.
No, I know. Everyone's saying, oh, you have to pivot. And that's my new word that I hate, pivoting. But yes, they've been terrific. So
I'll say hi to Kathy and thank her.
And
thanks for the time. Thanks for bringing me in.
Yes, we'll have a Zoom cocktail soon. Not a Zoom cocktail, like go to meeting cocktail soon.
Could we do that? Let's do that.
We'll get a group together.
I'd love that. That'd be so fun. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming to my house.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
All right.